today's project, we have a Motorola 8400 repeater here. Pretty much the same thing as an 8300 repeater. I thought I'd make a video demonstration on how to take this apart, whether you're cleaning it or you need to fix something on the inside. Figured it'd be helpful to kind of give you a rundown of how it all works. So for this, you will need, depending on how far you want to go, there are 3 different sizes of Torx screws that you need, as well as a 7mm to get some of the nuts out. Starting off, we are going to take off the top part, which consists of 5 Torx screws, 2 on either side, and then 1 there in the center. And that will give us pretty good access. That's the wrong size. Should give us pretty good access to the inside, and we can take a look at what's going on. I always like to keep one of these little magnetic trays handy for this because there will be quite a few screws. Good to lay them out so you don't mix them up. Alright, and with those 5 screws out, this whole top plate should just lift right off, and now you are on the inside of the repeater. So what we are looking at here, looking at it from left to right, this is your transmitter. So behind that is your main cooling fan. You have your transmitter, obviously. On the front here, this board is your, which is what does your indicators on the front, as well as some of the processing. On the right here, this is your receiver brick. Below that is the power supply, which has its own cooling fan built in. This is your programming port and another circuit board here. And then some wires that connect about. If you notice, this brick, which we'll pull out in a second, looks awfully similar to one of these mobiles. This is a XPR8500 mobile, but any of these XPR mobiles you can see is very similar. It's not quite identical, but it's close. Same ports, same antenna ports, or not quite the same antenna port, same power and accessory pinout connector. The transmitter and receiver brick are identical, and so a common failure point on these is the transmitters like to burn themselves up. So you can actually swap the 2 bricks around and just plug them in the same way, and it doesn't require any different programming. Swap your heat dissipation over, and then yeah, you've essentially got a brand new repeater. So if you're having power output issues, definitely look into swapping those if you don't want to use an external amplifier. Now we are going to take off this front part of the repeater just so we can get better access to getting in here to start disassembling this further. This is going to be 4 more screws on the front, a bigger size Torx bit will do. Okay, and with those 4 off, this front part will just fall down here. To take this off, there's a regular Ethernet cable. These things I've found to be kind of a pain to pull out, so you might have to give them a little force. This one's usually not too bad. And then you have a ribbon cable. You definitely want to be very careful with these. Just ever so slightly pull on that to get it out, like that. And now this front part is free, so you can take that out. If you have a lot of dust in the front grill here, you can easily clean that out. So now that we have a little better access to the inside here, we're going to go ahead and take out the transmitter. So you're going to take your 7mm screw head there and simply just unscrew these nuts, or 4 of them on the transmitter side, to take those out. On the back side here, you're going to have a quarter turn to remove your antenna cable. Your power cable is the same as any other XPR mobile. Just pull that out, and then you have your accessory port as all of its wires run to it. And that, and the other ribbon cable goes to your receiver. And that is your transmitter that is now removed, so you can kind of get a good look at that. This part on the top here is your heat dissipation module. If you are going to swap the transmit and receive bricks, there are very tiny screws in there that require a very long bit. This is very narrow, obviously, to get in there to take that off. When Motorola manufactured these, they used thermal tape between the top of the transmitter and the base of this. I would recommend swapping that to thermal paste. I've had better luck with those, but that's a common failure on these. They're perfectly good receivers, so you can swap them over, but the transmitters do tend to fail, especially on trunking systems. These, like I said, are essentially two mobile radios sandwiched into this chassis, and they're not really rated for that continuous duty of a trunking system, especially if they're the control channel. So anyway, on the right side now, we're going to go ahead and remove the receiver. To do that though, because there's a screw holding it on the side here, you do have to take out this entire unit, which isn't too bad, but there are a couple steps to it. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect the antenna cable. We're going to remove power on the back here as well. And there's nothing plugged into the accessory pin back there. On the back of the repeater, if I tilt this forwards, you're going to need to remove these two screws here for your programming port. That will allow you to slide this whole card out. Believe that's going to be, it's going to be the same size as the 5 screws on the top and sides for the top that we took off first. Okay, with that off, you can remove this little plate here. That just helps to keep this secured, and we can set this back down. And we will go ahead and remove, there are 5 of these 7mm screws to remove here. 3 on the left side, the 2 on the right side are a pain to get to just because of this thin gap here, so you're probably going to need a socket extension, or you have a long socket. And one in the back here under the wires. Okay, those off. I'm going to switch over to a socket extension. In there. Slide that down in there. Alright, with those removed, before we are going to take this out, we need to actually pull this card out the back. So it just pops out like that. It's just on pins. And then from there, you should just be able to very easily lift this out. Make sure you disconnect your fan. And now your receiver and power supply are taken out. So this chassis is down to pretty much the bare bones now, except the fan. To take the fan out is very simple. You don't need to remove everything to get to the fan. It is just simply these 4 screws on the back here. I definitely recommend taking that out to clean it out. Yeah, that's all you're left with. This is very now easy to clean, obviously. Go ahead and take our screws out of here. And then we are going to remove the receiver from the power supply. And then I'll also show you how to get into the power supply to clean that out because it gets pretty filthy. Alright, now just looking at the receiver and power supply. Now we do have access to these 2 side Torx screws here. So we can go ahead and take those out. Those will just screw out like that. And now your receiver brick will slide just out. So there you can see the top part where your heat dissipation module will go. If you are going to swap that over, that's where it will go on there. And now below that, all you have left is your power supply, well, and your circuit board back here. The power supply has 4 screws, 2 on either side, and then that will allow you to lift this right off. On the circuit board, there is going to be a power supply cable going to that. So make sure to pop that off as well, like so. And now all of this is free. Looking at the power supply here, you can kind of see our wiring harness on the back here. There is a fan on here as well. Never had any issues with this fan going bad, but it does tend to collect a lot of dust. As you can see, this one's pretty filthy. So to get onto the inside of the power supply, and this is really only for cleaning, there's not much that you can fix or repair in here. You're going to need a Phillips head screw, and there are 5 of these screws on here, I think. Yeah, there's 1 on the top and then 2 on either side. So we'll go ahead and remove that just so you can see what the inside of this looks like. It does get pretty filthy in there. Those removed. Set this down and take the cover off. So there you can see the inside. This one's not too dirty. We'll just go through and use some compressed air to kind of blow the dust out. If you need to replace that fan, that's pretty much the only component that you're gonna replace in here if that goes bad, or maybe some of these wires back here. But that is it for the power supply. So we're going to go ahead and start reassembling everything, which is the same as exactly how you disassembled it in the opposite order. So we will put these, oh, that does not go there. We'll put these screws back in, same way we took them out. With the power supply cover back on, we will go ahead and bring back our chassis for it. Slide that over. And we will reattach. There are 4 screws here that will go on the sides to hold that power supply in. Okay, I am not going to do a swap on the transmit and receive bricks today just because this repeater doesn't need it. So we will go ahead and slide our receiver brick back in. You want to make sure that you have it technically upside down. You want your power supply to be on the left and your antenna port to be on the right. So just keep that in mind when you're putting this back together. Once inside, screw that in as well. It uses the same screws as the power supply to hold it into the frame. Just 2 screws, one on either side. Okay, your receiver side and power supply are now reassembled. We're going to go ahead and bring in the main chassis and go ahead and reassemble it back into there. Okay, when you bring this back in, you'll see this notch kind of here where the wiring harness from the power supply comes out. I like to bring your radio powers to, bring them on top of the power supply. I just think it's easier for trying to do a little bit of cable management inside here. That way one of these will go to your receiver and then the other one will go to the power, but that way they're not in the way back here when you're trying to plug in any of the other stuff. So our power supply that goes into our circuit board here, we'll get that plugged back in. We will get our receiver hooked back up here with the antenna. And we will also get power back in there as well. Okay, when you have this in here, you want to make sure that you have it pushed all the way back and down. That can sometimes give you a little trouble. There are these 2 ridges that need to line up in these holes here in order for this to work. Okay, now that we have that back on there, we can go ahead and take our little nuts here and screw them back on to secure everything back down. For the ones on the right side, they're kind of difficult to get at. I like to use a little magnetic tip to try and get them on and then get them started on threading. Seems to work best. Or if you drop one of these down there, this is an easy way to pull it back up so you don't have to take everything out again. can go ahead and tighten. Now that you have everything securely fastened here on the right side, let's go ahead and get the transmitter brick back installed. So the transmitter side is much easier to put back in. I should also mention there is a bracket on here, which is just two of these torque screws on either side, or one torque screw on either side, total of two of these, just securing this in there. So if you're going to swap the bricks, that's how you take that out. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, and this side is much easier to put back on. Just easier to reach all of the nuts. Alright, let's go ahead and get our power plug back in here. And finally, you're going to get your antenna connected back up. On the front here, let's connect our ribbon cable back to the receiver. Just very gently push it in. And we can go ahead and reassemble the front panel. Just like we did before, we will connect our Ethernet cable. We will connect our cord coming from the rear board, and we will connect the ribbon cable from the transmitter. I want to make sure this is plugged all the way in so you get good contact, like so. And then you can go ahead and screw back in the front panel. Alright, with the front all put back together now, you're almost done. We do not want to forget about putting our card back in the back. Alright, and on the back here, you don't want to forget about your network card, or excuse me, not your network card, your programming card. This will slide right into the pins. With that reattached, we can also put that rear plate on. Which will go right there. Using the same screws as the side. Alright, and the last step is going to be to reattach the top plate. That center screw needs to line up there. this top plate does only go on one way. And once you reattach your 5 screws that hold the top on, you're back in business. Alright, now that the top is back on, we can go ahead and give it a quick bench test. So we're going to go ahead and power it on. You hear the fans kick on. It will flash disabled for a few seconds, but that's just a normal boot up procedure. And if you've done everything right, all the lights should turn on, like so. I have this running in analog mode, so when I key up on a radio, you'll see both transmit and receive light up accordingly. These repeaters are, as you saw, pretty easy to work on. Their design is very modular, so it's very nice to be able to swap parts out if things break. If you have any questions, suggestions, or things that I missed, leave them down in the comments below, and thank you guys for watching.